Have you ever felt a silence so deep, it wasn't just the absence of sound, but the absence of life? Like the world itself had stopped breathing? Before we begin, if stories like this touch your heart, please like the video, subscribe for more, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're listening from. It means a lot to us. Late October in Willow Creek always smelled like endings. Crisp, decaying leaves, wood smoke clinging stubbornly to the damp air, and the sharp, clean scent of frost threatening before dawn. The light was thin, gold but weak, slanting through skeletal maple branches onto Anna's overgrown backyard. It painted long, lonely shadows across the peeling porch steps where she sat, a mug of untouched tea turning cold between her hands. 3 months. That's how long it had been since the last ambulance light had washed over these walls, since the quiet hum of her mother's oxygen machine, the anchor of Anna's world, had clicked off for good. The house, too big, too full of ghosts now, seemed to sigh around her. It wasn't grief that sat on her chest most days. It was the numb, hollow weight of after. The question mark hanging over every room. What now? She'd left her fast-paced graphic design job in Boston, packed up her apartment, and come back to this sleepy New England town to care for her mother in the final, brutal stretch of cancer. She'd held her hand, smoothed her hair, whispered promises she wasn't sure she could keep. Promises about living fully, about not letting the house become a museum to sadness. Now, surrounded by her mother's things, the faded floral sofa, the dusty collection of ceramic birds, the half-finished crossword puzzle still on the side table, Anna felt adrift. Unmoored, like a boat cut loose in a vast, silent sea. She tried sorting through boxes, tried painting a room, tried forcing cheer. But the loneliness, it had teeth. It gnawed at her in the quiet hours. Before dawn, after sunset, she felt transparent, a ghost haunting her own life. That's when the shadow appeared. Late one afternoon, as Anna sat defeated on the back steps, a flicker of movement caught her eye near the overgrown lilac bushes. A cat. Small, painfully thin, a ragged tortoiseshell coat the color of autumn leaves and spilled ink. One ear was torn, a jagged notch missing, a silent testament to battles Anna couldn't imagine. But it was her eyes that held Anna captive. Huge, wary green pools, watching from the safety of the tangled branches. Not feral, exactly, but deeply untrusting. Guarded, they stared at each other across the expanse of neglected lawn. The cat utterly still, Anna barely breathing. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken history. Then, a low rumble started, so faint Anna thought she'd imagined it. The purr? It sounded rusty and used. The cat wasn't looking at her anymore, but past her, at the empty doorway behind her, as if waiting for someone else. Someone who wasn't coming. Anna felt a pang, sharp and unexpected. Recognition? She knew that look. That waiting. She started small. The next day, she placed a chipped cereal bowl of water near the lilacs, far back from the house. She retreated inside, watching from the kitchen window. Hours passed. The shadows lengthened. Finally, a cautious nose emerged, then the whole bony frame. The cat drank with desperate gulps, eyes darting nervously, before vanishing back into the dusk. Anna felt a flicker, the tiniest spark in the numb void. Purpose. Connection. She named her Thistle. For the sharpness, the resilience, the way she clung to the edges of existence. Anna began a ritual. Every evening, as the sky bled into oranges and purples, she'd place a small saucer of milk or scraps of leftover chicken near the lilacs. She'd sit on the top porch step, a respectful distance away, A book open but unread on her lap. She didn't call out, didn't try to coax, just sat, breathing in the cooling air, letting her own stillness mirror the cat's wary watchfulness. She talked, softly, not to Thistle directly, but to the gathering twilight, about the stubborn dandelion pushing through a crack in the walkway, about the ache in her shoulders from trying to wrestle the ancient lawnmower, about the hollow echo in the house when she turned off the lights. Sometimes, she'd talk about her mother, the way she used to hum off-key while baking, the specific lavender scent of her handkerchiefs, the crushing quiet of her absence. Her voice would hitch, tears would blur the fading garden. And sometimes, just sometimes, she'd catch a glimpse of Thistle's green eyes, watching her from the shadows. Not judging, just present. Weeks bled into the deepening autumn. Thistle's visits became more predictable, her approach less frantic. She'd emerge from the bushes, pause, assess Anna with those penetrating eyes, before approaching the food. Anna learned her tells. The slight flattening of her ears when a car door slammed too loudly down the street. The way her tail would twitch, just the very tip, when Anna shifted position. The soft, almost inaudible chirp she'd make when she first spotted the food. Anna started noticing details. A faint, silvery scar tracing a path along her ribs beneath the thick fur. The way she always ate with her body angled, ready to flee. The surprising delicacy of her paws, despite the torn ear. One afternoon, a particularly cold wind whipped through, scattering dry leaves like nervous birds. Anna shivered, pulling her sweater tighter. Thistle, finishing the last scrap of tuna, didn't immediately bolt. She said, just for a moment, licked a paw meticulously, and then looked directly at Anna. Not past her, at her. A long, slow blink. A deliberate closing of those green eyes, held for a heartbeat, before she turned and slipped back into the lilacs. Anna sat frozen. That blink, it wasn't casual. It felt intentional, like a wordless offering in the deepening chill. A fragile thread spun across the damp grass between the porch and the bushes. A thread Anna hadn't realized she'd been desperately grasping for. The numb weight in her chest shifted, just a fraction. Not gone, but shared? Something had begun. Something quiet, tentative, but undeniably real. A small, wild creature had chosen to share the edge of her silence. And in that shared space, Anna felt a whisper of something she thought she'd lost. The possibility of warmth. The slow blink lingered in Anna's mind, like the faint afterimage of a candle flame, long after Thistle had vanished back into the lilacs. It wasn't overt affection, not yet. But it was acknowledgement. A crack in the fortress wall Thistle had built around herself. For Anna, adrift in the vast, echoing silence of the house, it felt monumental. The ritual deepened. Anna swapped the chipped cereal bowl for a sturdy ceramic dish, a pale blue one her mother had used for custards. She warmed the milk slightly on chilly evenings, added a spoonful of leftover broth to the chicken scraps. Small offerings, laid out with a quiet reverence. She still sat on the top porch step, book open, but her attention, her whole being, was tuned to the lilac bushes, waiting for that first flicker of tortoiseshell movement in the gathering dusk. Thistle's approach became less a furtive dash and more a cautious procession. She'd emerge, pause at the edge of the bushes, her green eyes sweeping the yard, the porch. Anna, with the intensity of a seasoned scout. Only then, satisfied the coast was clear, would she pad slowly, silently, across the brittle grass. Her movements were economical, precise, each paw placed with deliberate care. Anna learned to hold herself very still, to breathe shallowly, to let Thistle dictate the terms of their fragile truce. She started noticing the small things, the intricate map of Thistle's being. The way the autumn sun caught the copper flecks in her otherwise dark fur. The faint white star on her chest, barely visible beneath the thick tortoiseshell patchwork. The surprising softness of her belly fur glimpsed when she stretched after eating. And the sounds, not just the purr, which was still infrequent and sounded like gravel tumbling in a distant stream, but the tiny chirps she made almost under her breath as she ate. A sound of pure, uncomplicated satisfaction. It made Anna smile, a real smile. The first in months that didn't feel like it was carved from ice. One raw, damp afternoon, rain threatening but never quite falling, Anna pushed the boundary. Instead of sitting on the step, she sat on the bottom one, closer to Thistle's feeding spot. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. Too much. Too fast. Thistle emerged from the lilacs, saw Anna's new position, and froze. Her body went rigid, tail stiffening. Those green eyes locked onto Anna, wide, unblinking, assessing threat. Anna held her breath, didn't move a muscle, not even to blink. The silence stretched, thick with tension. Raindrops began to patter, softly, on the dry leaves. Slowly, Thistle's tail lowered, just a fraction. Her rigid posture softened, almost imperceptibly. She didn't flee. She walked deliberately to her bowl and began to eat. Anna exhaled, a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The rain fell a little harder, drumming a soft rhythm on the porch roof. Thistle ate, ignoring the water darkening her fur. Anna sat, getting damp, feeling a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the weather. A tiny victory, shared only with the falling rain and a wary cat. The turning point came with the cold. A sharp Arctic front swept down, turning Willow Creek into a landscape of brittle branches and biting wind. Frost painted intricate, glittering patterns on the windows overnight. Anna woke to a world muffled in white, the silence deeper than ever. She bundled up, scarf wrapped high, and ventured out to Thistle's spot. The lilac bushes offered scant protection. The water in the blue dish was frozen solid, the scraps of food stiff and unappetizing. A pang of worry, sharp and immediate, pierced Anna's numbness. Where was Thistle? Was she huddled somewhere, freezing? Had the cold driven her away, or worse? She cleared the ice, refilled the dish with lukewarm water, placed fresh, warm chicken inside. Then, driven by a sudden, desperate impulse, she did something she hadn't dared before. She pushed open the back screen door, just a crack, just enough for a small creature to slip through. She retreated into the kitchen, leaving the door ajar, the scent of the warm chicken hopefully drifting out. She busied herself making tea, her back to the door, straining to hear any sound over the whistle of the kettle. Minutes crawled by. The warmth of the kitchen felt claustrophobic. Doubt gnawed at her. Stupid. Presumptuous. She'll never. A soft scrape. Barely audible. Anna froze, teacup halfway to her lips. She didn't turn around. Not yet. She heard the faintest rustle, the quietest click of claws on the worn linoleum just inside the door. Then silence. Utter stillness. Anna's breath caught. Slowly, so slowly, she turned. Thistle stood just inside the threshold, a silhouette against the gray light of the doorway. Water droplets glistened on her fur. She wasn't looking at the food dish Anna had placed just inside. She was looking at Anna, her green eyes huge, wary, but curious. Her body was poised, coiled, ready to spring back into the cold at the slightest provocation. The wind howled outside, a stark reminder of the harsh world beyond the door. Anna didn't move, didn't speak. She just stood, holding her teacup, letting the warmth seep into her hands. She met Thistle's gaze, and slowly, deliberately, gave her the slow blink. The same one Thistle had offered weeks before. An offering of peace, a gesture of trust. Thistle held her gaze for a long moment. The only sounds were the wind, the ticking of the old clock on the wall, and the frantic beating of Anna's own heart. Thistle's gaze shifted, tiny to the dish of warm chicken on the floor. She took one cautious step, then another, her movements fluid but tense, every sense alert. She reached the dish, sniffed it, then began to eat, quickly, efficiently, but her eyes kept flicking back to Anna, watching. Anna stayed perfectly still, sipping her tea, pretending nonchalance she didn't feel. Tears pricked her eyes, hot and sudden. This small, wild creature, choosing the fragile warmth of her kitchen over the known harshness outside. Choosing, tentatively, to cross the threshold into Anna's world of grief and silence. It felt like an act of profound courage. Thistle didn't stay long after she finished eating. She cleaned her face meticulously, gave Anna one last, long look, then slipped back out through the cracked door, vanishing into the frosty morning. But the air in the kitchen felt different. The silence wasn't just absence anymore. It held the echo of cautious trust. The faint scent of damp fur and cold earth lingered, a tangible reminder. After that, the door stayed cracked during feeding times, weather permitting. Thistle's explorations of the kitchen grew bolder, inch by cautious inch. She'd sniff the legs of the table, investigate a fallen crumb, retreat quickly, then return. Anna started talking to her, softly, directly. Not about heavy things, not yet. About the weather. About the stubbornness of the old furnace. About the ridiculous price of eggs at the market. Mundane things, spoken in a low, calm voice. Thistle would listen, her ears twitching, her body language slowly relaxing as she ate. Sometimes, she'd even sit for a few minutes after, grooming herself, her purr a soft, intermittent rumble, like a distant motor trying to turn over. One evening, Anna sat at the small kitchen table, sorting through a box of old photographs she'd been avoiding. Pictures of her mother, print, smiling, before the illness had carved hollows in her cheeks and stolen the light from her eyes. Anna's throat tightened. She traced the outline of her mother's face in a faded beach photo, the pang of loss sharp and fresh. A tear escaped, tracing a hot path down her cheek. She didn't bother wiping it away. A soft sound made her look down. Thistle was there. Not by her food dish, but sitting beside Anna's chair, looking up at her. Her green eyes were fixed on Anna's face, unusually focused, almost attentive. Anna hadn't even heard her approach. Thistle tilted her head, a small, questioning movement. Then, very deliberately, she stretched her neck forward and gently, tentatively, bumped the top of her head against Anna's dangling hand. It wasn't a demand for petting. It wasn't a rub. It was a soft, deliberate touch. A connection offered in the raw space of Anna's grief. Anna gasped, a small, choked sound. Too slowly, lowered her hand. Thistle didn't flinch. She allowed Anna's trembling fingers to brush the top of her head, the space between her ears. Her fur was softer than Anna imagined, warm, alive. Thistle closed her eyes, leaning infinitesimally into the touch, and that rusty purr rumbled, stronger this time, a tangible vibration against Anna's skin. Anna's tears flowed freely now, silent rivers down her face. She wasn't crying just for her mother, but for the sheer, unexpected tenderness of this moment. This small, battle-scarred creature, who knew about survival, about loss, about the cold, was offering a silent comfort Anna hadn't known she needed. She sank her fingers deeper into Thistle's fur, feeling the purr resonate up her arm, a fragile lifeline thrown across the dark water of her sorrow. She cried, and Thistle stayed, her head resting against Anna's hand, a warm, purring anchor in the storm. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was filled with the sound of shared survival, the quiet hum of a connection deepening, wordlessly, in the soft light of the kitchen. Anna realized, with a jolt that felt like coming up for air, she wasn't just feeding this cat anymore. She was learning to trust again, one slow blink, one cautious touch, at a time. And Thistle, it seemed, was learning to trust her back. The hollow space inside her didn't feel quite so vast, quite so cold. There was warmth now. Small, tentative, fiercely guarded, but undeniably, blessedly. The fragile warmth of that kitchen moment. Thistle's head pressed against her hand, the purr vibrating through her grief, became a new anchor for Anna. Winter settled over Willow Creek like a thick, gray blanket. Snow piled high against the porch steps, muffling the world outside. Inside, the old house still held its ghosts, but now, it also held Thistle. She was no longer just a visitor to the kitchen. Slowly, tentatively, she began to explore. The worn rug by the back door became her designated spot, warmed by a patch of weak afternoon sun slanting through the window. Anna found an old, soft towel, folded it neatly, and placed it there. Thistle accepted it with a regal air, settling onto it with a deep sigh, as if claiming her rightful throne. Her routines became woven into Anna's. The soft tink-tink of her claws on the linoleum as she patted in for breakfast, the rhythmic rasp of her tongue during meticulous grooming sessions after meals, the way she'd watch, utterly fascinated, as snowflakes drifted past the windowpane. She was still cautious, still prone to sudden stillness if a noise startled her, but the rigid wariness softened day by day. Anna started talking to her more freely. Not just about the weather, but about the memories the house held. Sitting by the fireplace one frigid evening, flames casting dancing shadows, Anna found herself telling Thistle about her mother's love for old jazz records, how she'd sway in the kitchen, eyes closed, lost in the music. Thistle lay on her towel, belly exposed, paws curled, listening. Her green eyes, half closed, followed Anna's voice. It wasn't judgment, it was presence. A silent witness to the stories Anna needed to tell, to the tears that sometimes still came, hot and unexpected. Thistle never shied away from the tears. Sometimes, she'd simply blink slowly. Other times, she'd rise, stretch, and bump her head gently against Anna's ankle, a soft, solid reminder, I am here. You are not alone in this quiet house. The thaw began, a slow, muddy seep replacing the deep freeze. Patches of brown earth emerged like secrets whispered through the snow. Anna felt it too, a tentative thawing within herself. She started tackling neglected corners of the house, not with frantic energy, but with a quiet purpose. She sorted through her mother's clothes, donating most, keeping a few soft sweaters that still held the faintest ghost of lavender. She cleaned windows, letting the weak spring sunlight flood the dusty rooms. Thistle supervised these activities from a safe distance, often perched on the back of the sofa, her tail twitching with mild interest. Then, the scratching started. It was faint at first. Just a few quick rasps against the wooden frame of the closet door in the downstairs hallway. The closet was unremarkable, painted the same faded beige as the hallway, used mostly for storing winter coats and vacuum cleaners. Anna barely registered it the first time, assuming Thistle was just sharpening her claws, though she'd placed a sturdy scratching post near her towel weeks ago. But it didn't stop. Night after night, usually just as Anna was settling into bed, the sound would start. Not frantic, but persistent. Scritch, 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 scritch. It wasn't on the post. It was always on that specific closet door. Anna would call Thistle's name softly, and the scratching would stop. Silence would reign, until Anna's breathing deepened towards sleep, and then it would start again. Soft, insistent, like a nagging thought she couldn't silence. Curiosity pricked at Anna, then a flicker of unease. Why that door? She tried luring Thistle away with treats, redirecting her to the post. Thistle would take the treat, perhaps give the post a half-hearted swipe, but inevitably, her focus would drift back to the closet. Her behavior around it changed subtly. She started sitting in front of it for long periods, not scratching, just staring. Her green eyes fixed on the plane her body unnaturally still. Vanna approached. Thistle wouldn't flee, but she'd turn her head slowly, watch Anna with an inscrutable expression, then look back at the door. It felt expectant, ominous. One afternoon, sunshine streaming through the hallway window, dust motes dancing in the beams, Anna decided to investigate the closet. It felt silly, letting a cat's peculiar behavior unsettle her. But the scratching, the staring, it was getting under her skin. Thistle was sitting sentinel a few feet away, watching intently as Anna grasped the cold brass doorknob. The familiar scent of wool and mothballs wafted out as she pulled the door open. Nothing unusual. Winter coats hung neatly, boots lined the floor. A vacuum cleaner stood sentinel in the corner. Anna pushed the coats aside, peered into the dim recesses. Just dust and the faint, sad smell of disuse. She sighed, partly relieved, partly frustrated by her own jumpiness. "See, Thistle," she murmured, turning back to the cat. "Nothing in here but old coats." But Thistle wasn't looking at her. She was staring fixedly past Anna, into the very back corner of the closet, at the wall itself. Her tail twitched just the tip. A low sound, not quite a growl, more like a questioning rumble, vibrated deep in her chest. Anna frowned. She stepped further into the closet, pushing past the hanging coats, the smell of dust thick in her nostrils. She crouched, peering into the shadowed corner. The wall was bare, just the same beige plaster. But as she leaned closer, her fingers brushed against it, she felt something. Not smooth plaster, but a slight irregularity, a patch that felt different. Cooler? Smoother? She couldn't tell in the dim light. She stood up, fetched the flashlight from the kitchen drawer. Thistle hadn't moved. Her eyes followed the beam of light as Anna shone it into the corner. In the back corner, near the baseboard, was a section of wall about the size of a dinner plate that looked newer. The texture was slightly smoother, the paint a fraction lighter, almost like it had been patched over. Anna had never noticed it before. Why would there be a patch in the back of a closet? Her mother had been meticulous, but she hadn't mentioned any repairs down here. A shiver traced its way down Anna's spine, unrelated to the cool air in the closet. That night, the scratching didn't just resume. It intensified. Louder and more urgent. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Anna lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her heart pounding in rhythm with the sound. It wasn't just clawing anymore. It sounded like Thistle was trying to dig. The persistence was unnerving, almost desperate. Anna threw back the covers, marched down the hallway. Thistle stopped instantly, turning to face her, her eyes reflecting the faint moonlight from the window. She didn't look guilty. She looked determined, resolute. She held Anna's gaze for a long moment, then deliberately turned back to the door, raised a paw, and gave the patched section one more, slow, deliberate scratch. "Thistle, stop it." Anna's voice was sharper than she intended, laced with the fear the strange patch had ignited. "What is wrong with you? There's nothing there." Thistle flinched at the tone, her ears flattening slightly. But she didn't run. She just sat, staring at the door, then slowly turned her head to look back at Anna. Her green eyes held a look Anna couldn't decipher. Not defiance, not fear. Something deeper, older. A silent plea? A warning? The air in the hallway felt charged, thick with unspoken tension. The comfortable rhythm they'd established, the fragile trust built over shared meals and quiet companionship, felt suddenly fragile, strained by this inexplicable fixation. Anna retreated to her room, closing the door softly. The scratching didn't start again, but the silence that followed felt heavier, more charged, than the noise had been. She lay awake, staring into the darkness. The image of that faintly different patch of wall burned in her mind. Why was it there? What did Thistle know, or sense, that she didn't? Was it just a cat's bizarre quirk, or was it something more? The peaceful thaw she'd felt within herself began to refreeze, replaced by a cold knot of anxiety. The house, which had started to feel like a place she could maybe, someday too, now felt like it held a secret. A secret Thistle was desperately trying to reveal. And Anna, caught between her growing love for this mysterious creature and a rising tide of unease, didn't know if she wanted to know what it was. The comforting warmth of their bond was suddenly laced with the chill of the unknown. The quiet companionship had become a silent standoff, centered on a patched section of wall in a dusty closet. The trust was still there, but it was trembling, tested by an enigma neither of them could voice. What lay behind that patch? And why was Thistle so determined to uncover it? The questions hung in the cold night air, and answered, heavy with implication. The fragile piece of winter's end had shattered, replaced by the first, sharp crack of spring tension. The silence after Anna's sharp command in the hallway wasn't peaceful. It was a held breath, a taut wire vibrating with unspoken tension. Thistle didn't scratch again that night. But the air in the house felt different, charged, watchful. Anna slept fitfully, her dreams fragmented by images of crumbling walls, of Thistle's green eyes glowing in the dark, of her mother's voice, muffled, calling from behind a closed door she couldn't open. She woke before dawn, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach, the phantom sound of scratching echoing in her ears. Thistle was already in the kitchen, sitting primly by her empty blue dish. She looked up as Anna entered, her gaze steady, unreadable. No flicker of guilt, no overt demand. Just that same unnerving, expectant stillness. Anna filled the dish, her movements stiff. She avoided looking directly at the cat, afraid of what she might see, or not see, in those green depths. Thistle ate with her usual quiet efficiency, but Anna felt watched. Judged? Or was it implored? The day stretched, gray and damp, mirroring Anna's internal state. She tried to distract herself. She attacked the overgrown flower beds in the front yard, hacking at dead stalks with more force than necessary. Mud caked her boots, cold seeped through her gloves. But the physical exertion couldn't dislodge the image of that patched section of wall, or the memory of Thistle's deliberate scratch, the low rumble in her chest. Why there? What possible connection could a stray cat, who arrived after her mother's death, have to a hidden repair in a downstairs closet. Doubt warred with a dawning, terrifying curiosity. Was she losing it? Projecting human motives onto an animal's bizarre fixation? Attributing meaning to a random quirk? If Thistle's persistence felt anything but random. It felt targeted, intentional, like she was trying to communicate something Anna was too afraid or too stubborn to understand. By late afternoon, rain began to fall, a steady, cold drizzle that drove Anna back inside. The house felt oppressive again, the silence heavy with the weight of the unaddressed mystery. She stood in the hallway, staring at the closed closet door. Thistle materialized beside her, silent as a shadow. She didn't scratch. She didn't meow. She simply sat, her body angled towards the door, her gaze fixed on it, then flicking to Anna, then back. A silent vigil. The knot in Anna's stomach tightened until it was painful. The rationalizations crumbled. The fear of what she might find, of disturbing some hidden equilibrium, was suddenly outweighed by a desperate need to know. To silence the scratching in her own mind, to understand the silent plea in Thistle's eyes. This wasn't just about a cat's odd behavior anymore. It felt like a test of her courage, her willingness to look into the hidden corners of her grief, her trust in this fragile, inexplicable bond that had anchored her through the winter. "All right," she whispered, her voice rough in the quiet hallway. "All right, Thistle. Show me." Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird as she pulled open the closet door. The familiar sense of wool and dust greeted her, mundane, ordinary. Thistle slipped past her legs, padding silently into the dimness, heading straight for the back corner. Anna followed, flashlight beam cutting a stark circle in the gloom. She pushed the heavy winter coats aside, the hangers scraping harshly on the rod. The air grew colder, dustier. Thistle sat directly in front of the patched section, her tail wrapped neatly around her paws. She looked up at Anna, her green eyes reflecting the flashlight beam, huge, luminous. Waiting. Anna crouched, the cold linoleum biting through her jeans. She shone the light directly onto the patch. It was different. Smoother, the paint slightly mismatched, the edges faintly visible under the stark beam. It wasn't a professional repair. It looked hurried. Anna reached out, her fingers trembling, tracing the edge. It felt cool, slightly recessed. She pressed. It gave just a fraction, more than the surrounding plaster. A jolt of adrenaline shot through her. It's hollow behind there. The thought was terrifying, electrifying. Thistle let out a soft chirp, a sound Anna had never heard before, almost encouraging. Anna stood up abruptly, her breath coming fast. This was madness. She should stop. Call someone. But who? And say what? My cat is obsessed with a patch in my closet wall, and I think there might be something? She looked down at Thistle. The cat hadn't moved. Her gaze was unwavering, patient, but insistent. There was no judgment in those eyes now. Only a quiet certainty, driven by a force stronger than reason, stronger than fear. Anna turned and walked to the small utility room off the kitchen. Her hands were shaking as she rummaged through the cluttered drawer, past screwdrivers and tape, until her fingers closed around the cold metal handle of the claw hammer. It felt heavy, alien, dangerous in her hand. She walked back to the closet, her footsteps echoing in the silent house. Thistle was still there, a small, dark sentinel in the beam of the flashlight Anna had propped against a boot. Anna knelt again, the hammer cold and slick in her palm. She hesitated, one last moment, staring at the patch. What if it was nothing? What if she damaged the wall for no reason? What if it was something? Something her mother had hidden? Something painful? Thistle shifted pressing her shoulder gently against Anna's knee. A silent nudge. A spark of warmth against the cold dread. Anna took a deep, shuddering breath. She raised the hammer. The first tap was tentative, a soft tap against the patched plaster. A tiny puff of dust bloomed in the flashlight beam. Thistle didn't flinch. Anna tapped again, harder. A hairline fissure appeared. Another tap. A small chunk flaked away, revealing darkness behind it. Anna worked now, methodically, chipping away at the edges of the patch. Her movements were clumsy, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate need to see. Plaster dust filled the air, tickling her nose, coating her hands. Thistle watched, utterly still, her eyes fixed on the growing hole. The patch wasn't thick. It was a thin layer of plaster over something else. Something soft? Anna chipped away a larger piece, revealing not lath, but aged, crumbling cardboard. Her breath hitched. She set the hammer down, reached in with trembling fingers, ignoring the grit scraping her skin. She pulled gently, carefully, at the edges of the cardboard. It came away easily, disintegrating in places, revealing a small, dark cavity behind the wall. And nestled inside, wrapped in what looked like faded blue flannel cloth, was a small object. Rectangular, metallic. A tin box. Small enough to fit in the palm of her hand. Tarnished, dented, utterly unexpected. Anna froze. Her mind blank. She stared at the box, then at Thistle. The cat's gaze was fixed on the cavity, her body tense, but not with fear. With anticipation? Recognition? Slowly, reverently, Anna reached into the dark space. Her fingers brushed cool metal. She carefully, so carefully, extracted the small tin box. It was heavier than it looked. Coated in a fine layer of plaster dust. The flannel cloth it was wrapped in was threadbare, the blue faded to a ghostly gray. She held it, cradling it in both hands, sitting back on her heels in the cramped closet space. Thistle leaned closer, sniffing the box, then letting out a soft, almost inaudible sigh. She sat down again, pressing her entire side against Anna's leg, her warmth a steady anchor. The world narrowed to the box in Anna's dusty hands, the weight of it, the cold metal against her skin, the faint scent of old paper and dust and something else, something indefinably her mother. The scratching, the staring. Thistle's inexplicable persistence, it all led here. To this. Hidden. Forgotten. Or intentionally concealed? Anna's hands shook violently now. Tears blurred her vision, hot and sudden. Not tears of sadness, not yet. Tears of overwhelming, terrifying. What was inside? A secret? A memory? A final message? The possibilities crashed over her, a tidal wave of emotion she couldn't control. The carefully constructed walls she'd built around her grief, the numbness she'd cultivated, shattered as completely as the plaster she'd just broken away. She was crying openly now, silent sobs shaking her shoulders, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her cheeks. She clutched the small tin box, this physical manifestation of a mystery she hadn't known existed, a mystery her cat had somehow, impossibly, led her to. The trust she'd placed in Thistle, the bond forged in shared silence and tentative touches, it hadn't been broken. It had been leading her here, to this moment of raw, terrifying revelation. Thistle didn't try to stop the tears. She didn't look away. She simply pressed harder against Anna's leg, her body a solid, purring warmth against the cold shock. Her purr, usually so faint, rumbled louder, a deep, resonant vibration that Anna felt travel up her leg, into her chest, a tangible counterpoint to her ragged breathing. It wasn't just comfort now. It felt like understanding, a shared recognition of the enormity of this moment, this small, cold box pulled from the darkness behind a wall. The scratching had stopped. The mystery wasn't solved, but it was held, physically, in Anna's trembling hands. And beside her, the small, scarred creature who had refused to let it stay hidden, offered the only comfort she could, her presence, her warmth, her unwavering, purring silence. The breaking point wasn't just the wall. It was Anna's heart cracking open, not just to grief, but to wonder, to the terrifying, beautiful possibility that love, even lost love, could still have secrets to share. And that sometimes, the most unlikely guides lead us to the truths we need most. Anna sat on the cold linoleum of the closet floor for a long time, the small tin box cradled in her dusty hands, Thistle's warm side pressed firmly against her leg, the deep, resonant purr vibrating through her bones. The frantic hammering of her heart had slowed, replaced by a profound, trembling stillness. The air was thick with plaster dust, the scent of old wool, and the heavy, sweet ache of revelation. The scratching had stopped. The relentless noise, both literal and echoing in her mind, had ceased. In its place was this small, cold weight, and a silence that felt entirely new. Not empty, but pregnant with unspoken histories. She didn't open the box. Not then. The act of retrieving it, the sheer, shattering finding of it, felt like enough. More than enough. It was a physical manifestation of the mystery Thistle had carried, a tangible thread connecting the scarred stray to this house, to her mother, in a way Anna couldn't begin to fathom. Exhaustion, deep and cellular, washed over her. She leaned her head back against the hanging coats, closing her eyes, feeling Thistle's purr seep into her, a grounding hum in the aftershock. Eventually, she stood, legs stiff and protesting. She carried the box, wrapped still in its tattered blue flannel shroud, out of the closet, Thistle padding silently beside her. She placed it on the worn wooden surface of the kitchen table. Not hidden, not tucked away, just a presence. She cleaned her dusty hands at the sink, the cold water shocking her skin back to the present moment. She filled Thistle's water dish, her movements automatic, ritualistic. Thistle drank, then sat beside the table leg, gazing up at the box, then at Anna. Her green eyes held no demand now, only a quiet, watchful serenity. Life didn't stop. The world outside the kitchen window kept turning. The muddy thaw continued, patches of stubborn snow shrinking against the determined green spears of crocuses pushing through the damp earth. But inside, within Anna, and within the rhythm of the house, something fundamental had shifted. The oppressive silence was gone. The house didn't feel haunted by absence anymore, but layered with presence. Her mother's presence. Yes, in the familiar creak of the stairs, the scent of lavender that sometimes still lingered in a drawer, but also Thistle's presence, solid, grounding, and now, the silent, potent presence of the unopened box. Anna found herself looking at the house differently. Sorting through her mother's things was no longer an act of painful obligation, but one of tender rediscovery. She found an old recipe box, her mother's looping handwriting detailing Anna's favorite oatmeal cookies. She found a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon, postmarked from places she'd never heard her mother mention. She found a small watercolor painting, surprisingly skilled, of the willow tree in the backyard, signed with her mother's maiden name. Each discovery was a small shock, a glimpse into a life lived before Anna existed, a life filled with passions and secrets she'd never fully known. The grief was still there, a familiar ache, but it was woven now with threads of wonder, curiosity, and a dawning respect for the complexity of the woman her mother had been. Thistle changed too. The rigid wariness, the constant readiness to flee, melted away like the last of the snow. She moved through the house with a new confidence, a sense of belonging. She claimed new spots, a sunbeam on the living room rug, the cushioned chair by the fireplace, the foot of Anna's bed at night. Her purr became a constant, comforting soundtrack, no longer rusty, but a deep, smooth rumble that seemed to emanate from her very core. She still watched Anna, but the intensity had softened into something akin to companionship. She'd curl up beside Anna on the sofa as she pored over old letters, her warm weight a comfort. She'd bat playfully at a dangling thread on Anna's sweater, a rare flash of kittenish whimsy. She'd greet Anna at the door with a soft, "Duh," her tail held high like a question mark. One afternoon, Anna was attempting to plant early peas in the still chilly garden soil. Thistle supervising from a respectful distance on the porch steps. As Anna pushed a seed into the dark earth, a memory surfaced, sharp and unexpected. Her mother, kneeling in this very spot years ago, hands covered in dirt, laughing as young Anna chased a fat bumblebee. The memory didn't bring the usual stab of pain. It brought a smile, small and genuine. She looked up at Thistle. The cat was watching her, head tilted. Anna smiled wider. She loved this garden, Anna said softly, the words feeling natural, unforced. Thistle blinked slowly, then stretched, arching her back in a luxurious curve, before settling back down, tucking her paws neatly beneath her. A silent, peaceful acknowledgement. The box remained on the table. Anna dusted it gently one day, carefully wiping away the plaster residue, revealing the tarnished metal beneath. It had a simple clasp, slightly rusted. She traced its outline with a fingertip, the cold metal warming under her touch. She picked it up, feeling its weight, the slight rattle of something inside. The flannel wrapping felt fragile, precious. But she didn't open it. There was no burning urgency anymore. The mystery itself, the knowing it was there, that her mother had chosen to hide it, that Thistle had somehow known, felt like a gift already. Opening it felt like a step she wasn't quite ready for. It required a different kind of courage, the courage to confront not just loss, but the specific secrets her mother had carried. She needed to be stronger, more settled in this new, quieter reality. The box wasn't a threat. It was a promise, a conversation waiting to happen. Evenings became Anna's favorite time. She'd make tea, sit at the kitchen table, the box within sight but not demanding attention. Thistle would often jump onto the chair beside her, or sometimes onto the table itself, sitting a respectful distance from the box. She'd curl up, her eyes half closed, a picture of feline contentment. Anna would talk, sometimes aloud, sometimes just in her thoughts. She'd tell Thistle about the letters she'd found, the recipes she might try, the stubborn squirrel that kept raiding the bird feeder. She'd talk about the future, tentative ideas about fixing up the house, maybe even starting a small freelance design business from the quiet of Willow Creek. The paralyzing question mark of what now had softened into a series of smaller, manageable possibilities. The vast, silent sea she'd felt adrift and had calmed, become a navigable channel. One rainy Tuesday, Anna was sketching idly at the table, a design for a potential logo lost in the flow of lines and shapes. Thistle was asleep in her chair, a soft, rumbling heap of tortoiseshell fur. Anna's gaze drifted to the box. She reached out, not to open it, but simply to rest her hand on the cool metal lid. A sense of profound peace washed over her, deeper than any she'd felt since before her mother's illness. It wasn't the absence of sadness. It was the presence of acceptance, of a quiet understanding that grief and love and mystery could coexist. That healing wasn't about forgetting, but about integrating the loss, the secrets, the unanswered questions into the fabric of a life still being lived. Thistle stirred, stretched, and opened her luminous green eyes. She looked at Anna's hand resting on the box, then lifted her gaze to Anna's face. No expectation, just quiet companionship. Anna smiled, a soft, uncomplicated curve of her lips. She withdrew her hand from the box and reached over, scratching gently behind Thistle's torn ear. The purr intensified, a happy thrum under Anna's fingers. The scratching on the closet door was a memory now. The desperate tension had dissolved. The house felt lighter, filled with the soft sounds of Thistle's purring, the ticking clock, the patter of rain on the roof, and the quiet hum of a life tentatively, peacefully, moving forward. The mystery of the box remained, but it no longer felt like a weight. It felt like a companion piece to the small, scarred cat who had brought it into the light. A testament to secrets kept, and perhaps, when she was ready, to secrets gently revealed. The hollow space inside Anna wasn't gone. But it was filled now, not with numbness, but with the warm, purring weight of Thistle beside her, the bittersweet memories of her mother, and the quiet, patient presence of a small tin box waiting on the kitchen table. The journey wasn't over, but the storm had passed. They were in the calm, tender, green-scented aftermath. And for now, that was enough. More than enough. It was a kind of peace Anna hadn't dared hope for, found not by solving the mystery, but by learning to live gently alongside it, guided by the quiet wisdom of a cat who had brought her a secret wrapped in a mystery, and then taught her how to simply be. Spring unfurled over Willow Creek with a determined green fervor. The skeletal branches of the maple in Anna's backyard blurred into a haze of tender new leaves. Daffodils pushed cheerful yellow heads through the damp earth, and the air, once sharp with frost, now carried the soft, sweet scent of warming soil and blossoming lilacs. Inside the house, the rhythm felt settled, peaceful. The tin box remained on the kitchen table, a silent, accepted companion. Anna no longer felt its presence as a question mark, but as a quiet promise. She'd touch its cool surface occasionally, tracing the dents, wondering about the hands that had placed it behind the wall. Her mother's hands. The thought no longer brought a stab of grief, but a wave of tender curiosity, a deep, abiding affection for the woman who had been more complex, more layered, than Anna had ever fully grasped. Thistle blossomed with the season. Her tortoiseshell coat, once ragged, now gleamed with health, thick and soft. She'd sprawl in sunbeams, a picture of lazy contentment, her purr a constant, comforting hum. She developed a fondness for batting at dust motes dancing in the light, and a peculiar fascination with watching Anna water the seedlings on the windowsill. Her wariness was a distant memory. She greeted Anna with chirps and headbutts, followed her from room to room like a small, silent shadow, and slept curled against Anna's side most nights, a warm, purring weight. She seemed utterly, completely home. One bright Saturday morning, Anna decided it was time. Not with ceremony, but with a quiet sense of readiness. The sun streamed through the kitchen window, illuminating the dust motes Thistle loved to chase. Anna made a cup of strong tea, the scent of bergamot filling the air. She sat at the table, the box before her. sensing the shift in focus, hopped onto the chair beside her, settling down, but her green eyes remained alert, fixed on Anna and the box. Not demanding, but present. A witness. Anna took a deep breath, the familiar scent of old paper and dust rising faintly from the flannel wrapping. Her fingers, no longer trembling, worked at the small, slightly rusted clasp. It resisted for a moment, then released with a soft click. The sound echoed in the quiet kitchen. Carefully, reverently, she lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in the faded blue flannel, were several items. Not jewels, not stacks of cash, nothing dramatic or worldly. Things of quiet, profound intimacy. A small, worn leather notebook, its cover soft with age. A delicate gold locket on a fine chain, tarnished but unbroken. And a single, faded black and white photograph. Anna picked up the photograph first. It showed a much younger version of her mother, perhaps in her late teens, standing beside a willow tree, the willow tree in the backyard. Her smile was wide, unguarded, radiant. Beside her, leaning against the tree trunk with an easy grin, was a young man Anna didn't recognize. He had dark, tousled hair and kind eyes. They looked happy, truly effortlessly happy. On the back, in her mother's familiar looping script, was written, "Thomas and me. By our willow. Summer 63. Before everything. Thomas." The name resonated, a faint bell tolling in Anna's memory. Had her mother ever mentioned a Thomas? Vague recollections surfaced, perhaps a passing comment about a childhood friend, lost touch, nothing more. This was different. This was a look of pure, youthful adoration Anna had never seen in pictures of her parents. Next, she lifted the locket. It was cool, surprisingly heavy for its size. Her thumbnail found the tiny catch, and it sprang open. Inside, on one side, was a tiny, perfect photograph of the same young man, Thomas, smiling directly at the camera. On the other side, a single curl of fine, dark hair, tied with an almost invisible thread. The keepsake. A tangible fragment of a love Anna had never known existed. Finally, she opened the leather notebook. The pages were thin, fragile, filled with her mother's handwriting. Not the practical lists Anna remembered, but flowing, lyrical script. Poetry. Fragments of thoughts. Short diary entries. The date on the first page, June 12, 1963. My dearest Thomas, one entry began. Today by the willow, you spoke of California, of orange groves and oceans so vast it swallows the sky. The light in your eyes, it makes my heart ache with wanting to go with you anywhere else, everywhere. Another entry, weeks later, was shorter, darker. Father says no. Absolutely not. He says Thomas has no prospects, no family name. He says it's a foolish girl's dream. He doesn't understand the way the world brightens when Thomas walks into a room. The way my soul settles when he laughs. Then, a heart-wrenching entry, dated August 20th, 1963. He's gone. Just gone. Father arranged it. A job opportunity for Thomas's father, clear across the country. Thomas came last night, under the willow. We cried. He gave me this locket, with his picture, and a piece of his hair. He promised to write, to come back for me. I want to believe him. I have to believe him. But Father's smile is cold satisfaction. The willow weeps today, and so do I. The entries grew sparser after that. Sadness seeped into the words. No letter yet. Mother tries to comfort me, but she doesn't understand either. She married the man her parents chose. Then a single line, undated, but the ink was blurred, as if by tears. He married. Someone wrote mother. It's over. Truly over. Bury the dream. The last entry in the notebook was different. Dated years later, the handwriting more mature, but the emotion raw. Saw an article today. Thomas died. Car accident. Last year. All these years, holding a ghost. All these years, the willow holding our secret. I kept his locket, his picture, our secret. My husband is a good man. Anna is my light, but Thomas was my first heart, my wild, impossible dream. I put it away today, behind the wall, where it belongs, with the past. Anna read, her tears falling freely, silently onto the worn pages. She wasn't crying just for her mother's lost love, but for the young girl her mother had been, full of hope and defiance, whose heart was broken by forces beyond her control. She cried for the weight of that secret, carried alone for decades. She cried for the complexity of her mother's life, the joys and sorrows she'd never fully shared. The woman who baked cookies and hummed off-key, who fought cancer with quiet dignity, had also been a girl who loved passionately beneath a willow tree, a girl who buried her first dream in the back of a closet. Thistle, who had been watching Anna's face intently, let out a soft, plaintive meow. Not demanding, but concerned. Anna looked down at her through her tears. Thistle's green eyes held a depth of understanding that felt almost human in that moment. She stood up on the chair, stretched, and then deliberately placed one soft paw on the open page of the notebook, right beside the faded photograph of Thomas and young Ilara beneath the willow. Held it there, looking at Anna, then gently retracted her claws, leaving no mark, just the soft pressure of her pad on the paper. The gesture, so simple, so profound, shattered the last of Anna's composure. She scooped Thistle up, burying her face in the thick, warm fur of her neck. Thistle didn't struggle. She curled into Anna, purring fiercely, a deep, resonant vibration that seemed to echo the thrumming of Anna's own heart. She cried great heaving sobs, for her mother's hidden sorrow, for the young man named Thomas, for the weight of secrets, and for the overwhelming gratitude that this small creature, this unlikely guide, had led her to this truth. Later, when the tears had subsided, Anna carefully placed the treasures back into the tin box. Not to hide them, but to protect them. She understood now. This wasn't just her mother's secret. It was a piece of her history, a testament to a love that, though lost, had shaped the woman she became. It explained the quiet melancholy Anna had sometimes glimpsed, the way her mother would sometimes stare out at the willow tree with a faraway look. She took the box, not back to the closet, but upstairs to her mother's room. She placed it gently in the top drawer of the dresser, beside the lavender-scented handkerchiefs. A safe place, a respected place. Descending the stairs, Anna paused at the back door. Thistle was already there, sitting by the screen, looking out at the backyard, at the willow tree, now fully dressed in its spring green finery. Anna opened the door. Thistle slipped out, not with her old wariness, but with a confident grace. Anna followed. They walked across the damp grass, the scent of earth and new growth strong in the air. Anna stopped beneath the sweeping branches of the willow tree. Thistle circled her ankles once, then sat, gazing up at the canopy, her green eyes reflecting the dappled sunlight. Anna looked up, too, at the leaves shimmering in the breeze, the same leaves that had sheltered her mother's stolen moments, her heartbreak, her secret. A deep sense of peace, profound and unexpected, settled over Anna. The mystery wasn't just solved, it was understood, revered. Thistle hadn't just brought her a box, She'd brought her a key to her mother's hidden heart, to the dreams buried beneath duty and time. She looked down at the small cat sitting serenely at her feet, this creature who had appeared out of the autumn shadows, scarred and silent, and had somehow known where the deepest secrets lay hidden. Anna crouched, reaching out to stroke Thistle's head between the ears. Thistle leaned into the touch, her purr a soft rumble of contentment. "Thank you," Anna whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for bringing her back to me, like this." Thistle blinked slowly, deliberate, her eyes holding Anna's gaze. Then, she turned her head not towards the house, but towards the dense lilac bushes at the far edge of the property, the bushes where she had first appeared as a shadow. She gave a soft, almost inaudible chirp, a sound Anna had only heard a few times before. It wasn't directed at Anna. It was directed towards the bushes, as if acknowledging something or someone. A shiver, not of fear, but of awe, traced Anna's spine. The connection, the impossible, intuitive link Thistle seemed to have with this place, with her mother's hidden past, felt suddenly breathtakingly real. How had she known? Had she sensed the energy of that long-ago sorrow near the closet? Had she, in some inexplicable feline way, understood the importance of the willow tree? Or was it simply the profound, mysterious bond that sometimes forms between lost creatures and the spaces that hold untold stories? Anna didn't need the answer. The gift wasn't just the contents of the box. The gift was the knowing. The gift was the restoration of her mother's full humanity, complexities, and all. The gift was the unshakable bond with this small, miraculous cat who had walked out of the autumn mist, bearing not just companionship, but a legacy. Thistle had brought her more than a secret. She'd brought her a deeper understanding of love, loss, resilience, and the quiet, enduring magic that lingers in the places where hearts have loved deeply. The final gift wasn't in the tin. It was in the purr vibrating against her leg, the green eyes reflecting the willow's light, and the unshakable certainty that sometimes the most profound truths are delivered not with words, but with a slow blink, a persistent scratch, and the quiet loyalty of a scarred tortoiseshell cat who chose to share a hidden treasure. The mystery of Thistle's origin remained, but it no longer mattered. She was home, and she had brought Anna's mother home too, not as a ghost, but as a whole, beautifully complex woman, finally seen. The willow tree, its long, green-gold branches swaying like a living curtain in the soft spring breeze, became Anna's sanctuary. Beneath its canopy, the air hummed with the buzz of bees drunk on early pollen, and the dappled sunlight painted shifting patterns on the grass. It was no longer just a tree. It was a monument, a silent witness to generations of secrets, of stolen kisses, of heartbreak buried deep, and now, of quiet revelation. Anna would often sit there, her back against the familiar, gnarled trunk, Thistle curled beside her or prowling the perimeter with the quiet dignity of a sentinel finally at peace. The frantic scratching in the closet, the gnawing anxiety of the unknown, it all felt like a distant storm, weathered and past. The calm that settled over Willow Creek, over the old house, over Anna's own heart, was profound. It wasn't the absence of sorrow, but its gentle integration. Grief had made room for understanding, room for a deeper, more complex love for her mother, room for Thistle's unwavering presence. Learning about Thomas, about her mother's first, fiercely guarded love, hadn't diminished the love Anna knew. It had expanded it. It painted her mother, Elara, in richer hues. The woman who hummed off-key while baking wasn't diminished by the girl who wept beneath a willow. She was made more human, more real. Anna found herself speaking to her mother more often, not just in memories, but in the quiet moments. "I understand now, Mom," she'd whisper, looking at the locket she now sometimes wore, tucked beneath her shirt. "I understand why you looked at the willow that way." The secret, once a source of tension, became a bridge. A connection to a part of her mother she'd never known. A part that explained the quiet resilience, the occasional wistfulness that had always been there, just beneath the surface. Thistle, too, seemed to sense the shift. Her transformation from a skittish shadow into a creature of serene confidence was complete. She moved through the house not as a guest, but as its rightful guardian. Her purr was a constant, comforting soundtrack, a vibration that seemed to resonate through the very walls, chasing away the last lingering echoes of silence. She had routines, supervising Anna's morning coffee from the windowsill, claiming the sunniest patch of rug in the afternoon, curling possessively against Anna's legs at night, her warmth a tangible anchor. The torn ear, the silvery scar along her ribs, they were badges of a past she'd survived, not chains binding her to it. She was fully, unapologetically present. And in her presence, Anna learned a new kind of stillness. Not the numb stillness of grief, but the peaceful stillness of acceptance, of being exactly where she was meant to be. One warm afternoon, Anna tackled the overgrown lilac bushes at the edge of the yard, the very spot where Thistle had first appeared. As she pruned away dead branches, the air thick with the heady, sweet fragrance of the blooms, a memory surfaced. Not her own, but one pieced together from her mother's diary and the photograph. She imagined her young mother, Elara, perhaps sneaking glances out her window towards the willow, her heart aching for Thomas. Had she ever noticed a small, watchful tortoiseshell cat lurking in these same bushes decades ago? Had Thistle, or perhaps her ancestors, witnessed those stolen meetings, that final, tearful goodbye? The thought wasn't fanciful, it felt like a thread connecting across time. Thistle watched her work from the porch, blinking slowly, as if privy to the thoughts weaving through Anna's mind. Anna didn't open the tin box again for a long while. Its contents were etched in her heart, but she didn't hide it away. She kept it on her dresser, a small, quiet reminder. Sometimes she'd trace the tarnished metal, feeling the dents, thinking of the hands that had held it last, her mother's hands, young and trembling with heartbreak, then older, steadier, placing it behind the wall. It wasn't a burden anymore. It was a touchstone, a symbol of the enduring nature of love, even when it's hidden, even when it changes shape. It spoke of the secrets we carry, the dreams we bury, and the unexpected ways they can resurface, not to wound, but to heal, to complete the picture. The world outside began to seep back in. Anna started sketching again, not just logos, but scenes from her garden, the willow tree, Thistle sleeping in a sunbeam. The tentative ideas about freelancing solidified. She set up a small workspace in the bright, sunlit room that had been her mother's sewing room, her mother's ceramic birds watching benignly from a shelf. It felt right. Not running away from the memories, but building a new life gently within their embrace. She even ventured into town more, exchanging hesitant smiles with neighbors who remembered her as Elara's daughter. The paralyzing question mark of "what now?" had been gently erased, replaced by the steady, comforting rhythm of days lived with intention, with quiet joy, and with a small, purring companion. The mystery of Thistle's arrival, of her uncanny connection to the hidden box, remained just that, a beautiful, inexplicable mystery. Anna stopped trying to solve it. Some things defy explanation. Some connections are woven from threads unseen, felt only in the quiet hum of trust, in the knowing glance, in the persistent scratch that leads to a hidden truth. Perhaps Thistle had simply sensed a profound sorrow resonating from that closet wall, a sorrow that called to her own history of survival. Perhaps, in the vast, silent language of intuition that animals possess, she understood that Anna needed not just companionship, but a key to unlock a deeper understanding of love and loss. Or perhaps, as Anna liked to believe in her quietest moments, her mother, in some way beyond comprehension, had sent a guide. A small, scarred messenger with eyes the color of spring leaves, carrying a silent promise that love leaves echoes, that secrets can be gifts, and that even in the deepest loss, connection finds a way. The story of the cat who vanished for a month and returned with a tiny box tied to her collar, it wasn't just about the box. It was about the vanishing itself. The silent vigil Anna kept. The hollow ache of not knowing. It was about the slow, fragile building of trust across a frost-bitten lawn. It was about the persistent scratch that became a desperate plea, the crack in the plaster revealing a hidden chamber of the heart. It was about the cold weight of the tin, the faded photograph, the locket holding a curl of dark hair, the diary entries blurry with decades-old tears. It was about the willow tree, keeper of secrets, finally whispering its story. But most of all, it was about the return. Thistle's return wasn't just a physical reappearance. It was the return of hope, fragile at first, then blooming with the spring crocuses. It was the return of Anna's voice, first whispering to the twilight, then sharing stories with a purring listener. It was the return of her mother, not as a ghost, but as a whole, complex woman, her hidden chapters finally read. It was the return of life to the old house, filled now with the sounds of keyboard clicks, rustling sketchbooks, and the deep, contented rumble of a small creature utterly at home. And it was the quiet, persistent return of Anna to herself. Not the self she was before Boston, before the illness, before the crushing silence, but a new self. Stronger, softer, woven through with threads of loss, yes, but also with resilience, with understanding, and with a love that had arrived in the most unexpected, scarred, and purring package imaginable. Love isn't always loud declarations. Sometimes, it's a slow blink across a frosty lawn. Sometimes, it's a paw gently resting on a trembling hand in a moment of grief. Sometimes, it's the persistent, inexplicable drive to uncover a hidden truth for someone else's healing. And sometimes it's a small, battered creature walking out of the autumn mist, bearing a tiny, cold box tied with string, a box that holds not just a secret, but the key to unlocking a heart frozen by loss. Thistle didn't just bring back a box. She brought back the light. She brought back the story. She brought Anna home. The screen fades slowly from the image of Anna smiling softly beneath the willow, Thistle a warm shadow at her feet. Gentle, hopeful music swells slightly. This story of a vanished cat, a hidden box, and the secrets that bind us reminds us that the most profound connections often arrive in unexpected ways. That healing can come on quiet paws, bearing gifts we never knew we needed. That love, in all its messy, beautiful, heartbreaking forms, leaves echoes that can guide us home. If Anna and Thistle's journey touched your heart, please like this video. It helps us share more stories like this. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for daily tales of hope, healing, and the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals. Where in the world are you listening from? Tell us in the comments below. We read every single one. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that even in the quietest moments, magic can find you. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family. Until the next story, may your own world hold unexpected warmth, gentle surprises, and perhaps a quiet companion watching over you.